So can the original Fuji FinePix X100 shoot at night? If you're comparing it to a modern mirrorless camera, the answer is a definite no. New cameras can produce incredibly clean images at ISOs that film photographers could only dream of. My Nikon Zf, the camera I'm filming this with right now, can take decent photos at ISO 25,000, and black and white images are still very usable at ISO 51,000. But I'm shooting with a camera produced in 2011. Not exactly a great time for high ISO photography. Yet, even with this camera's pretty obvious limitations, I'm still getting some exceptional night shots that I absolutely love. So it's definitely possible to get great night shots on the original X100. The question is how? Today I want to walk you through what exactly I'm doing to shoot this 15-year-old camera after dark, and the 3 key rules you should adopt to really up your night game. And if you like any of the images I show you in this video, you can download them for free. Look for a link in the show notes below. The first key rule is to fish, not hunt. There are 2 general approaches to street photography: hunting and fishing. Photographers who hunt tend to walk quickly through the city streets looking for people doing interesting things, and when they find them, they lock focus and fire away. The approach focuses on quickly moving from place to place and finding unique subjects. Fishing, though, requires the photographer to slow down. Street photographers who adopt the fishing approach look for great backgrounds, something of interest. Maybe it's a sign, a patch of light on the ground, the geometric symmetry of a shop window, then wait for the human element to appear. But not just any human element, something noteworthy, something unique, attractive, or amazing, and then they snap the shot. If you're going to shoot the original X100 in low light, your best choice is to adopt the second approach. The X100 series is not exactly known for having great autofocus, but we're talking about a 2011 Fuji before any of their glacial autofocus improvements. And that means any photographer shooting with the FinePix X100 at night will be met with a contrast autofocus system that hunts relentlessly. Even on things you think the camera should have no problem focusing on, it's an exercise in extreme frustration. This is not a Sony a7 IV, and to step around the low light autofocus nightmare, you really have to lock focus before pointing your camera at your subject. When I'm shooting at night, I find an object that shows strong contrast under a bright light that's around the same distance to me that I expect my subject will be when I snap the shutter button. Focus, then recompose. Old school photography. And this approach does work wonders. Camping out at a great scene and waiting for a subject to appear has gotten me some of my favorite shots. Look at this pizza shop photo. I love the light from the sign and how it reflected on the black hood of the car in front of me. That series of round light bulbs under the sign and the lamp on the brick pillar lit up the shop face with a nice warm glow. But there was something missing. So I waited around until somebody stood up to pay and leave the establishment. I set my focus, and when the door opened and his face popped out into the light, I took the shot. Or take a look at this mega big size coffee shot. The sign here caught my eye, and I liked the warm glow from inside the shop. There was a bit of light coming from the pot lights above the ordering window, but it lacked the human element. It didn't take long for a taxi to park on the street behind me and the driver rush out to order a cup. I focused on his back, then waited for him to rotate his body so I could see his face, and then I snapped the shot. The result is an environmental portrait of an overworked middle-aged Korean guy as he waits to catch his second wind. So if you're gonna shoot the original X100 at night, your best bet for great shots is to camp out and wait for your subjects to come to you. You probably noticed something pretty striking about those 2 images. They're both extremely contrasty and focused on how the light of a sign wraps around the face of the subject. And this brings me to the second rule for getting great night shots on the FinePix X100. Focus on the light. Now, all photography is about capturing light, and as photographers, we pay special attention to unique lighting situations and even try and shoot when the light looks the most attractive. But when shooting with an old camera at night, great light shifts from a nice to have to a must have element in your photography. The light you're working with won't just make or break your photograph, it will often determine whether you can make a decent image at all. Unlike shooting during the day, there's no shooting in shadow or shade, and shooting with uniform lighting across the scene is rarely viable. And then any strong lights in your image will often draw the viewer's eye because it's light that people focus on before anything else. And while this is true of all night photography, it's especially true for a camera like the original X100. We're spoiled today as photographers. New mirrorless cameras have exceptional low light capabilities because of the exceptional high ISO performance. My little Fuji, on the other hand, starts to really hit its limit at about ISO 3200, and I rarely get good shots above 1600 unless I'm going after a particular look. So when shooting at night with the Fuji, I'm always looking for bright lights that will provide the camera with something decent to work with, so I can set the camera to those lower ISOs between 1600 and 3200, so the subjects in my shot are bright enough to capture with a reasonably fast shutter speed. Remember, the brightest light at night is substantially dimmer than shooting with the sun during the day, so we really need to give the little X100 sensor enough luminance to work with. Now, some of this is of course irrelevant if you like motion blur in your shot. If that's you, of course you can look for more dimly lit environments and draw the shutter speed out to get the light you need. But even then, you want to pay special attention to where those bright lights are, because they'll dominate the viewer's attention in your shot. And you still have to pay attention to where the light is coming from, because an artificial light source is the only thing that draws your subject out of the darkness and makes it possible to see them in your frame. So my recommendation is to form your composition around a light source that is bright enough to really draw your subject out of the darkness, and then pay close attention to the other distracting lights in your frame. When shooting at night, I prefer to expose for the light source rather than expose for my subject, since it's very easy to blow out highlights in digital and be left with ugly white blotches of what could have been smooth highlight roll-off. And while you're framing your shot, pay special attention to how the light wraps around your subject's face. I let the light source determine how bright my subject will be, and this often results in a deliciously moody shot. But placing your subject in front of a light source to form a strong silhouette can also work beautifully. Take a look at this shot here. I like the yellow E-Mart sign and thought it worked well with the yellow pedestrian safety strip on the sidewalk and the yellow crosswalk lines. The combination acted as a repeating pattern lit in dim yellow light. After setting my focus and exposing for the light inside the shop, I waited to see if someone would stroll down the street and into my frame. It only took a minute for someone to show up, and their stride opened up just as I stepped into the center of the shop window, framing them as a silhouette in motion. The third rule for getting great night shots with a FinePix X100 is to lean into the camera's strengths, and at night that means its soft, gritty aesthetic. Today everyone's obsessed with lens sharpness and large apertures, but this is really missing the mark when it comes to photography. Cameras and lenses are just tools that you can use to get a particular outcome, to capture images that achieve the look and feel that expresses your creative vision. Reproducing reality without distortion is not the point of photography. It's capturing captivating images. We're not photographers working at a passport office. We're artists, and that gives us license to produce images that express feeling as much or more than reproducing how something looked at the time. Picasso didn't obsess about his paintbrushes. He didn't keep checking painting forums or YouTube to see which new paintbrushes had the sharpest bristles. He was focused on producing work that showcased his unique artistic vision. Even masters like Rembrandt were more focused on the feelings that their paintings portrayed, not reproducing reality as accurately as possible. When it comes down to it, there's no such thing as a bad camera or lens. There are just different tools that you can use to get a particular look or share a particular feeling. And this should give us comfort as shooters of old digital cameras. The FinePix X100 has limitations at night, but this also allows you to capture an exceptional looking image the way a new camera can't. First, the camera's noise profile at ISO 1600 to 3200 is highly organic, with little color noise and a rendering that is close to film. Setting the ISO to 1600, for example, allows you to produce noisy or graining images that my Nikon Zf couldn't match at those sensitivity settings. And the original X100's f2 lens produces a soft glow wide open, so while f2 may be a requirement for shooting in many scenes at night, it'll also provide you with a dreamier aesthetic that you just can't get out of brand new Sony. Take a look at this shot here. This shot was taken at f5.6 and 1/125th of a second at ISO 3200. If you look closely, you can see that the image is gritty. You have noise in the shadows and along the subject's face, but it also complements the gritty nature of the subject and the environment. The guy is wearing dirty, oversized black pants and has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. There's bits of garbage and paper on the ground on this bar street, and the plastic sheet he's hanging up to keep out the cold for the winter is pretty grungy. So the noise in the image really complements the scene. Or look at this corner store that I captured at night. The camera was barely holding on here at ISO 3200 as well, but with much dimmer lighting. Actually, I had to shoot this a couple times before the camera stopped producing banding due to low light. You can see that the final shot is exceptionally noisy, but that somehow adds to the look and feel of the image. It seems to represent the city in a more organic way. And at f2, the storefront is kinda soft, as if out of a dream. Compare that to my Nikon Zf. The files are much cleaner at ISO 3200, and I had to set the ISO to 51,200 to get a comparable amount of grit in this image. Even then, the shutter speed was at 1/2000th of a second and the aperture set to f5. That's an obvious limitation if you also want to add a little motion blur in your shot. So the FinePix X100's limitations can work well for you if you're willing to get creative and go for the gritty aesthetic. Look, at the end of the day, any camera can get great shots at night if you know how to use it and play to its strengths. The X100 is no different. If you focus on fishing rather than hunting on the street, focusing on light first and foremost, and are willing to play to the camera's strengths, then you should have no problem getting images like the ones I've shown you in this video. I'm heading out soon to do some night photography in Gangnam, Seoul, so if you want to catch that video and see how my X100 performs live, then make sure to click the subscribe button and the bell so you're notified of that video. And if you like any of the photographs I've shown you here today, remember to check the link in the show notes below to download the full image files.